Call the meeting to order. Leesburg City Commission meeting. Today's date is Monday, October 24th, 2022. The invocation and pledge will be led by Commissioner John Christian.
We all stand, please, and bow our heads. Well, Heavenly Father, we thank you for tonight to live in such a great city such as Leesburg, Florida. Thank you for our mayor, our city council, our city management, and those that make the city of Leesburg work so efficiently. Thank you for our residents. We thank you for the ones who visit our city. Our business owners, we pray, God, for prosperity. We pray for peace throughout our city. Pray for our president. We pray for our governor, those who have rule over us. We pray you give them wisdom and guidance that they will make decisions that will be beneficial for all of us who live in this great city. We pray for the troops around the world who fight for the freedom that we so enjoy, that we so cherish. We pray for our first responders, our police officers, firefighters. We ask you, God, to protect them and their families. We ask, God, that our city, God, continue to run smoothly and effectively. We pray now the decision we make tonight, God, that it will help those, God, who are less fortunate ourselves to make our city even better. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Christian.
Thank you, sir.
Proclamations, we have none. Presentations, none. Moving on to public comments. This section is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be rescheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Any comments? If none, moving on to the consent agenda. Any items the Commission wishes to pull?
5C4 and 5C5.
I have a couple.
Okay.
Okay, you got 5C4, 5C5, 5C8, 5C9, 5C10, and 5C12.
Okay. Any other items? Okay. Motion to approve remaining items on consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Burry?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5C4?
Introduced has to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a lease agreement with Curry Aviation LLC for vacant land located north of Veterans Road and east of Taxiway Kilo, and providing an effective date.
Comments?
Al, do you want to kind of maybe
You
go
give me-
through this
yeah,
before
let me
I start making comments?
Is Mr. Curry here this evening? There he is. Okay. So Mr. Curry may want to have some opportunity to speak on the matter after I present it to the commission. Anna, so I caught you sleeping. Would you pull up in the agenda package is the PowerPoint? It was, I don't remember which slide it was in there, but it was the CIPs for the airport. It was in this, I don't know what the numbers were. There you go, right there. Yeah, if you just hit me, start me right there.
One up.
Yep, and then, okay, so hit me to the next one. Okay, so here's where the airport's at. Obviously, this matter went before the airport advisory board, who I'll henceforth refer to as the board. And I think the concept on this project, as your city manager, is a good one. And the airport board has expressed to you last cycle that one of their number one priorities was building hangars. So we endeavored to do that with some of the other issues with grant cycle funding, so on and so forth, and the airport sitting on about $2.7 million in available cash. The chart up there, if you're watching it, it shows it's almost like closer to 425, but after you do your encumbered money and your reserve money, it's 2.7 of available unencumbered cash free to spend. Okay, so having said that, hit me with the next slide. There were some questions that didn't get reviewed by the airport board that after the airport board met on this topic, and I want to say they met October 6th, and in review of that with staff, which was Jack from GIR Consultants and Tracy, the airport manager, there were some questions over cash flow and CIPs that are coming before the airport. Because in doing this project, the airport board subtly shifts some priorities. So I thought it was important to make sure that everybody understood where the cash flow was. One of the comments from the presentation that we provided the airport board was there wasn't a good cash flow number, which made it hard for the airport board to determine what is a priority. I think it's fair to say that the airport board felt like the Curry lease should be a priority project because it mixes economic development with hangar development in an undeveloped parcel of the airport, which is that, for lack of better words, the northeast corner of 4 acres that are easily reachable. It's immediately north of the fire station and immediately west of the Cracker Barrel, that little corner right in there. So how much? So first off, $2.7 million in cash, but then how much is kind of the recurring cash basis? How much airport money comes in? And kind of stripping this down to make it easy, and I'll use round numbers. That's what this chart shows. So annually, the airport brings in about $1.3 million, and primarily that's in leases that are throughout the airport board. So this is exclusive of grant money to keep it simple. And from that 1.3, we spend a little over $600,000 in operating, about 630 grand. It goes up and down a little bit each year, but stays in that ballpark. So that leaves a little over $500,000 in cash. So somewhere between, some years it goes 470 or as high as 700. So on average, it's about 550. That is represented if you add the green line on this chart and the blue line, and it's down at the bottom, available cash. We did this chart back to fiscal year 15. That's important to add because in fiscal 15 is when we broke the airport out of the general fund to have its own enterprise fund. That way there's a clean accounting so that the airport is not being subsidized by the general revenues of the city and the airport revenues aren't subsidizing general operations. When we did that back in 2015 or fiscal year 15, we came up with a formula of a matrix, and I think we paid out to the airport X number of bucks. I can't remember it. It happened on my watch, but I don't remember that number. But I do recall that everybody was happy with the amount that we shifted, and we've moved forward with separate funds and good accounting, good government accounting practices. So having said that, so a tick over $500,000 each year. The green and the blue deviations is important because this goes back to grant funding. The airport receives grants typically from 2 organizations, the FAA and the FDOT. Basically, and to boil it down and make it easy, all that grant money is derived from aviation or jet fuel gas sales. So that's tax that goes to the federal government. The federal government keeps a bunch of that avgas jet fuel tax money. They keep a lion's share of that for the FAA, and then they kick back portions of that to all the states, and then the states divvy out that money based on all these intricate formulas. in the state of Florida. So that money goes to the FDOT, their transportation department or their aviation department of FDOT. So you hear us refer to it all the time as the FDOT. Those are the 80-20 grants. So FDOT grants are special in that they do the fun stuff, new projects, build hangars, build fuel farms, build towers, do new capital improvements, funded typically 80-20. FAA grants are different. FAA grants are funded at a higher level, 90%, but FAA grants are a lot stricter on what you spend on, and it's maintenance. So it's pave the runway, fix taxiway lights, fix the fence. So that's why we differentiate on the chart, because of the grant monies, of the free available $500,000 a year, we spend about half of that on FAA maintenance grants. So every year we're kicking out about $250,000 a year in maintenance grants. My opinion on that is you probably can skip a year, maybe two, if we want to bank cash and we want to do something that we don't have the money for. But I don't think you want to get in the process of skipping money for those FAA grants, because they keep the airport up to snuff, that we keep up with maintenance items. And there's the 5-year, or there's the 7, 8, 9-year history since inception. So then now, how much does the airport board really have, or the airport have? And the magic number is about $250,000. So $250,000 a year to bond with, to do other projects, to build your cash reserves with. So long story short, over the course of this analysis, the $250,000 a year has built up to 1.9, just a little under $2 million. By the way, it's 2.7 in their account. So if you do the math, you add that number to the Jenkins sale. That what the demonstration is most of their cash is because of the sale of an asset, which is good. Cash is king, but you got to be careful where you spend that, because your reoccurring revenue options are pretty much in the 250 level. Hit the next chart. So with that, there's potentially a competing demand on that cash, and how do you want to spend it? So go just track it down a little bit more there. So these are the major projects at the airport. On the list is relocate fuel farm and rehabilitate fuel farm. Both are the same projects, but they tackle the question of how do we refurbish the fuel farm 2 different ways. One is kind of a Cadillac plan at 3.5, and I'll spare you all the details just to keep moving, but this is important information, and I think it leads into where you want to go tonight in reference to the Curry lease. So fuel farm has 2 options: do the Cadillac and it's $3.4 million, or just rehabilitate what we have, it's $1.5 million. Both projects are eligible for FDOT grant funding. Veterans Road Site Development, $1 million. That's directly related to the Curry lease. So if you sign this lease tonight with Mr. Curry, you're going to need to make the improvements. And the site improvements are clear the ground, build the taxiway, build the fence, build stormwater, build an entry road. So we got taxiway ingress, egress for planes on the west side, road on the east side that comes off Veterans Drive. Remove the fence, clear the land, do stormwater. Our estimate, including engineering on that, is $1 million. So more on that later. The next big project that we have are the hangars. The hangars are broken down into 2 categories: hangar site development, which is the couple of acres that we have identified. Again, kind of just like with Veterans Road, but in this case, it's $2 million to get that prepped, and then that area can hold 4 buildings. Kind of the common thought is 2 T hangars, 2 corporate hangar sites. Each building costs about $1.5 million. So those are the projects. I think that's the last slide, isn't it? So those are the competing demands. We provided the airport board with a couple of ways to do this, to maximize the leverage. I won't go into these details, and I'll just summarize it. My concern is that the fuel farm is kind of gotten a higher rank and priority from the airport board. And if you do the fuel farm in the capacity that the airport board is recommending, which is the Cadillac plan, you're going to run out of cash really quick because the back to funding levels. While we used to enjoy more funding from FDOT, back to that initial how the feds break up the money, the feds have been keeping more of that money for different federal projects that they deem more important than giving it back to the states. So the states have a little bit less money. So when we used to get funded at 80% for different projects, the states kind of giving us the heads up, you're only going to get a certain amount. And so for Leesburg Airport, the average number is going to be just a tick over $1 million. I think it's 1.2. We'll talk a million at a time. So we think for the next 3 fiscal years, which started in this July, because it's their fiscal year, we can see each July $1 million being allocated to Leesburg. So how do we spend the money? So this is a chart that says, hey, do the Veterans Drive project with grant money now, do the site rehab with money tomorrow and cash tomorrow, and then start building with cash tomorrow, and slowly you matriculate your way in, and you end up with about $2 million. Next one. The next one says, hey, just focus on, this is how you can just build hangars, and you end up with 2 or 3 buildings and about 200,000 left. And then the next one shows if you do the fuel farm, by the summertime, you're only sitting on about 300 grand. So that's something you want to look at. I think there was some confusion coming out of the airport board. I spoke with Chairman Reisman about it the day after. I think we both concurred. The slide I added in here that the airport board didn't see was the cash flow board. So Alan's asked me to come back and speak to the airport board next month. So with all that confusion, how does this impact the Curry lease? So before you, what you have tonight is the Curry Aviation lease. The Curry Aviation lease contemplates basically a 32-year lease with 2 10-year exhibits. And it says, we will lease this property to Curry Aviation, and that area that we're developing, that north corner, is about 4 acres and has the potential to be divided into 4 bigger lots where you can put a bigger corporate hangar on, which would provide kind of that hangar economic development. So you got a bigger hangar. Now, hopefully corporations are going to come in, employ folks, and so there's an economic development incentive, a job creation center, kind of like some of the things we talked about before. So the concept is good. The question becomes, well, how do we pay for it, and what are the competing demands? Frankly, my recommendation to you is that the Curry lease and the hangar lease the Curry lease and the hangar concepts need to get rated above the fuel farm concept. So tonight we're just dealing with the Curry lease and how do you pay for the improvements that are associated with it. The lease that's before you contemplates that. It says for the first 2 years, the lease pays 16 cents for the raw land, the undeveloped land. 2-year time frame, because that's the time frame that we estimate that it will take the city to build the improvements. So the improvements being the site development, the $1 million. So it's $1 million we estimated to bring in the taxiway, bring in the road, bring in the fences, do the stormwater, clear the land. The lease then says, if we do this, the value of those improvements is divided by 4, because there's 4 potential buildable lots now. So $250,000 for the capital improvement divided by 30. That comes up to, I don't know, 30 cents, so, or a little bit, I think it's 24 cents. So once those improvements are made, the lease says the new lease rate is 40 cents per square based on this formula, actual cost, which is in the lease. Then year 1 restarts, and so it's 2 years at the 16 cents. That equals roughly $5,000 a year. Then it's 30 years at the modified per square footage with the improvements, which is for 30 years, which is, I don't know the square footage number. I think it's in the ballpark at 40 cents, but annual amount, it's a $11,999, I think is what's in the lease. So it's about 12 grand. Then it provides for 2 10-year options for a potential total of 52 years. That's the presentation from the city side.
Any comments from the commission?
Yeah, so I have a few here. I'm generally in favor of the Curry lease and developing that property. Also agree with Al that the fuel farm should kind of take a back seat because it's working fine. My concerns with the lease, I think, and it doesn't have anything to do with Dr. Curry or his project, but I think when it comes to the airport, we have to think not just like, is this lease a good deal just from the airport, but like, I think we always have to be cognizant of the airport's image, right? Because people view the airport as like kind of a, most citizens don't have any idea why we have one. I think it provides a ton of value to the city, but it's not something that's well understood. And I think we have to be very careful about structuring deals that look like we're kind of using city instead of money, even though it's airport money, for projects. We had the Whip Air deal, which was, a long time ago, but the city did an incentive there, and it blew up on us. Now, fortunately, we had a prior commission had the wisdom to put in a clawback, and we were able to pull back some, not all of our costs, but some, and I think that's important. So this isn't the same as that. The investment is smaller, and it's not based on jobs, but still, this is very different than what we're doing, and we are spending a substantial amount of money to help what will ultimately be 4 tenants. So this is not just about Dr. Curry. There'll be 4 people that will benefit from this, but only 4. So I think that's important. So for me, what I'd like to see is, so first I'd say I don't think it's fair to make him, even though it's agreed to make him pay a lease while we're doing the construction. So that small $4,000 or whatever, I wouldn't even want to collect that. I'd rather collect the money once the site's ready and he can get there. In return, I'd like to see him take out a $250,000 performance bond that says, hey, if I don't build this when it's ready, well, then we're going to get the money and we can build a hangar. Because what I don't want to see happen, and I think would look very bad for the city, we spend $1 million and then we don't have a tenant. That I think would be bad. And I say 250 because it's just, I think just a quarter. It's not fair to ask him to underwrite the whole project. And really, it should pretty much be a wash of, premium on that bond should be roughly the same as 2 years of lease would have been anyways. I'm not wild about the 30-year lease. I mean, the 50-year lease, the board's only done 30 years since I've been on here. I know there's some really old ones, but I don't think this project rises to the level of where I'd consider going out 50 years. And then I think they've been asked for this, but I think in fairness to the tenant, I think we might need to look at putting a cap on the amount of site work that we would want to recoup, right? We're estimating $1 million, but we've seen some pretty big project overruns, so I don't think it'd be fair to say that we need to recoup whatever our costs are, and they end up being $2 million, $3 million. So some sort of cap. I don't know, maybe like 1.2, 20% overrun. I'm open to kind of suggestions there, but those are just my general thoughts on what I could support.
I do have a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
There's 4 lots available. Would each one, I mean, what I got was the lease is for $12,499 after the first 2 years. Is that accurate?
Yes. I said 12, so I was off 500.
Okay. So would all 4 lots pay the $12,499?
Within that deviation, the formula would be the same. The 2 lots on the end are a little bigger square foot, but the formula is the same. So it would be probably within. I think like I said, the 2 inner lots are a little smaller, so they'd pay a tick under the 12,000.
So at the let's just say 12,500. And you say if you had all 4, my understanding, we don't have tenants for the other 3.
Correct.
So even if all 4 were rented, it'd take us 20 years to get our $1 million back.
I'm gonna take 30.
I think it's 20
No,
to get your money back.
No, well,
I mean, it's because you're doing the excess money,
Yes,
and you're doing
yes,
yes.
yes.
You're saying the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know we spoke earlier today about the possibility of some grant money possibly being available to fund some of this.
Yes, there's two ways to go. It would be to get grant money, which would be the FDOT allocation for this fiscal year. So there's a 1.2 available now. So if you did the project, my suggestion would be use that money, use that grant money. You would, I think Mr. Curry may want to talk to you about that a little bit. My suggestion would be to use the grant money this year to cover that $1 million, not including the engineering fees. The logic behind that is I think Mr. Curry wants to get moving as fast as he can. The city can't receive money on projects that we've already started. So I would say between now and the new year, that'd be about the time it'll take GIA to do the engineering. So we eat the engineering costs out of pocket, which is 80 grand, and then go back to the DOT for the $900,000 of the project.
Okay, so the 86,000 is part of the $1 million.
Yes, 86.
Okay, and if we were to be able to fund some of this through grants, would they still pay the same lease amount?
That's what the lease says. So yes, that was our proposal,
Okay, so they'd still pay the 12.5 regardless of
regardless
where.
whether we get the grant or not.
Okay.
I'm looking at you, Chris. I don't know if you're welcome to come to the podium anytime if you feel like you need. Okay. And Chairman Reisman, I don't know if you have any comments. Okay.
Yeah, and just to comment on Commissioner Roebuck, I don't think you should put a cap on that number. I think the bond is certainly understandable, and that's almost a wash, I would think, with the exchange of we would need to probably do some contract language that reserves it for the construction period, and then the lease at the 12.5 level starts the day construction starts, or if we want to go longer, the day the CO is issued on the PO. So there's on the building, but I would not cap it. Because the numbers right now in construction are just all over the place. So while I think less, and there, so I think the official number is 700 plus a contingency plus the engineering, and that's how it gets up to the $1 million or just south of $1 million. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the asphalt number. So you could see that thing really get big, or you could see it get small, and the lease is written for actual costs. So it could be that at the end of this, it's not 12.5, it's a tick less. What I think the legal position in that lease is it's the matrix of the formula. It's the 16 cents plus the actual expenditures divided by the term divided by 4.
I would just say that I think it's too big of an investment for what little return you're getting back on it.
And I'll just clarify, I said a performance bond, which I'd certainly be okay with, but given the low amount, it might have to be a letter of credit or something. I'm not certainly an expert there, but I'm open to, that'd have to be something that would be left open as to how it would be done.
Any other comments from the commission? I mean, I've got a few, but okay. Well, I appreciate Commissioner Roebuck's comments. I agree with the no rent during construction, trading it for the performance bond or letter of credit. I just want to be sure, my big issue is being sure we're consistent. Okay, we talk about 30-year lease, whether it's 30, I just want to be consistent and fair to everybody at the airport. So if they're 30 today, and that's the consensus going forward, I think I heard you say 50 was done years ago, but today the leases are 30 years.
Yeah, they're
today.
typically 20 with 2 5-year renewals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or-
and my point, actually, I would be willing to go with just a straight 30
Okay.
if they wanted it.
So I just, that's, I agree with that comment. And then the grant money, once again, I just want to be consistent. That's my whole point. I want to be fair to Dr. Curry, but I want to be consistent. We're trying to keep everybody happy at the airport. And the cap, I'd probably take that out too. So if there's no other comments, I mean, you want to formalize a motion, Commissioner Roebuck?
Well, Mayor, can you expound on that grant? I think we talked about the grant. Well, what's the issue with the grant?
So I think my understanding is that Dr. Curry's position is if we use grant money that he shouldn't have to pay back the site work cost. And I think what the mayor was saying, and I would certainly say, is we do all sorts of hangars out there with grant money, but people still pay
And I guess
regular rent.
I guess I was asking a question because I'm getting back to consistency. So
Yeah.
And I agree with that concept. I think paying the money back helps pay for other things at the airport. So if you just give it away, you don't pay it back. So the other things with the hangar and other things that we want to do, we're now subsidizing through a grant, which is not fair to the other projects, future projects, or the past projects. So the grant really has nothing to do with, for me, whether he pays back or not. I think it should pay back regardless because it helps expedite other projects at the airport.
okay, no, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
So
Okay, so I'll make a motion to amend the lease to reflect that there would be no payments during the city's construction, that the payments would start when the site is ready to be taken over, that a $250,000 performance bond or letter of credit be provided until the construction is complete of the hangar, and that the term be at 30 years.
okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Comments from the commission?
Real quick, I mean, I don't have any opposition to what Commissioner Roebuck is proposing. I just oppose the project overall. I just think it's too much
Okay.
money for what we're getting in return for it.
Okay. Comments from the public? Chris, please come to the podium if you want to speak. And we just need your name and address.
Name and what?
Name and address.
Chris Curry. This is a business address, home address. What do you want?
Your residence.
7523 Frog Log Lane, Leesburg.
Okay, thank you.
So, in your comment, not getting the investment back. Have you ever heard of Horton Stall Kits? Horton Performance Kits? No. It's a worldwide company. We sell kits. I just bought the company a year ago. Well, just finished it up. But we sell airplane stall kits to go in front of a wing for every Cessna made and every Piper made. And when it gets to Leesburg, I have 15 kits to go to Mexico. I have 9 kits to go to South America or South Africa. I have 6 kits to go to Australia. So when you put Horton in Leesburg Airport, now Leesburg is known as the home of Horton. So everybody in the world that looks up Horton stall kits, guess where they see it's located? Leesburg. So that brings more information, more people seeing the airport, more people coming into the airport. We're also just about to finish up a certification process on a motor. And that happens, you're going to see a tremendous increase in the amount of people coming into the airport. So it's not just Curry getting an airport hangar. This has to do with Horton stall kits, where we can do the production there. So it's there's nothing out there that's worldwide. Name one worldwide company at the airport that's known all over the world. You can look it up, and everybody in the world will say, "Oh, it's right there in Leesburg." Who's that?
I should like Firehawk.
He's
I don't know if
Worldwide.
it's
I mean,
but it's definitely nationwide.
You guys, okay? So that'd be 2. So and I don't know how many people are coming out to buy airplanes and stuff from you guys and stuff, but it's going to bring a lot of information of people seeing the city of Leesburg, coming into Leesburg, renting hotel rooms, eating food here. As we grow, the more employees we're going to employ. So it's not just let's just build a hangar for him or build a development for him. So I disagree that it's not a benefit to the airport, because it's going to be. Because depending on how big things get with this other part of the company, I may lease all 4 spots. So it's not that matter, and it's kind of like Field of Dreams. You build it, they will come. There are going to be people wanting to put hangars up because there's no hangars anywhere. So that's not going to be an issue. So the investment return is going to be pretty quick. On that comment.
Well, I get what you're saying. I mean, my thing is even if all 4 are leased out, it's still going to take a tremendous amount of time to get the $1 million back.
Totally agree. But is the exposure to the city worth that?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know what the potential of that exposure is going to be. Those
Right.
are, hypothetical questions. That
Well, it's
I
pretty
don't
realistic. You
know.
can
I
look
don't
up
have an
Horton
answer.
and-
You don't have an answer to it.
Well, there's a lot of people look up Horton when they want to buy their products.
Oh,
And Leesburg's right there on it. So, it's going to get a ton of exposure for the city of Leesburg. So, investment-wise, are you investment-wise money back or exposure to the city and more people coming in? to spend more money in the city. You're not going to see it from the airport, but you'll see it in the hotel reservations, the food people buy. People may move here, but you're not going to see that. Those are hypotheticals, but how much infrastructure are you going to have for that?
I get your point.
I'm just, because I'm just making my point back to you, because when you're saying it's not worth it, then
I'm saying
I disagree with that.
From a standard, just strictly standard investment, it's like 20 to 30-year return to break back even doesn't sound like a great investment.
no, but you're only
I
thinking
get
the
what you're
airport.
saying. There's intangibles there. You're going to get it back in other ways. I follow what you're saying.
Right. So $1 million may come back in 2 years, depending on how many people use it. That's the point, is you got to look at everything outside of just the airport. And then when, as far as the $250,000 bond or the, the credit, whatever, and I respect your thing with Whip Air, but kind of the same thing with Whip Air is how many people from Whip Air live in Leesburg when they did that? How many have a business already in Leesburg for Whip Air? How many invested any money in this city? None. How many kids of theirs went to school here? How many have to face all these people every day in the business life? If I screw this city over, how many people are going to come in my office and get orthopedic care? Because I'm going to look really bad. So, I'm invested in the city as much as a $250,000 bond. So,
And certainly so, and that was why the trade-off. Hopefully,
but that's all
no
I'm
rent
saying is,
for the
I
bond,
think
so.
having a business here for the last 20 years may say, okay, he's probably not going to run and do that. So, I totally understand where you're coming from as well. And if that's what it takes, it's what it takes. But, I'm not Whip Air, and I'm not those people from whatever other town they're from. I've been here for 25 years. And I got grandkids now, so they're probably not going very far. So, I mean, it's everybody has valid points, but I don't think everybody's looking on the outside of it other than just airport. And if you want to know how it's going to benefit the community, I can have a young man come up and explain to you, how much it benefited him being close to an airport. It's pretty much going nowhere.
I mean,
And then you found aviation, what happened? He's working on his commercial license.
I think we're all big believers in the airport. We've been very, very supportive of it.
No, I'm just saying, I want to try to bring more than just a company into the airport.
Yeah.
That's my plan. I mean, I'm here, I've been here, and I'm not going anywhere. So 30 years, all right. And 50 years, I'm still going, well, I may not be here, but my kids and my grandkids will be. So the plan is for them to
Right.
take the company over. I came from a little town in central Texas called Mejia, Texas. My grandfather, I've been in aviation. I went home in a Piper Cub from the airport. So aviation's not going to go anywhere when it comes to me. My kids are involved in it. My grandkid's 5, or 5 months, so I doubt he's really into it yet. But that's the point is, the extensions on the lease, because I plan on making this a project that's not going away.
Yeah.
I mean, Horton's been around since 1962.
And I would say that if everything works, and we certainly hope it does, in 30 years, you'll probably be coming back getting a better deal because the city will be wanting your company to stay in Leesburg.
Yeah, but that was the reason for the
yeah,
extensions,
right.
because, I didn't want to just hit and run.
Yeah, we appreciate your efforts on this, your patience. I know it's taking longer on all ends, but I think we're almost there. Any other comments?
Anybody has any questions?
No, I'm good. I appreciate your investment. Any other comments from the public? If none, roll call on the amendment.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
No.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Now roll call on the original motion.
And just as a note on that too, I'm going to take the 3 add-ons to the lease. I think it probably can just be administrative, so you probably don't need to see the lease come back before you as long as Mr. Curry signs it, which is modifying the first 2 years, the 250 bond, and going back to a 30-year term. So that's how we'll rewrite the lease, and then we'll present that to Mr. Curry. If he signs it, you won't hear back from us other than just administratively, the deal is done. If he balks at that, you probably hear back from him.
Okay. Everybody clear? Okay. So just need roll call on the original motion.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
No.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Will someone please introduce 5C5.
Oh, this has to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a task order with GAI Consultants, Inc. for professional design services for the development of vacant land located north of Veterans Road and east of Taxiway Kilo, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Comments from the commission?
I only pulled it because it was related to the
Oh, okay.
item.
Okay.
Yeah, but let me just to add to this. Okay, so the previous item is the Curry lease. Y'all modified it, so you don't know if Curry's going to sign that. Assuming he does, then that will trigger us having to do the engineering work. So this contract is the 80 or 86,000 to GAI to design those improvements. So I would just add two things onto this reso. Is number one, only give me authority to execute it if we have an approved lease. And then I'm also assuming that from our scope, you want us to endeavor to do this project with grant funds that are existing this year. And so we'll move that way. So just out of the spirit of full disclosure, we shift the funds around to do the project with grant funds, which we can do immediately. That will give Mr. Curry probably a window of about January of 23 when he can start construction. In the interim, so not to hold up his construction, assuming he signs off on the lease, then we'll have GAI start the design. And we'll start the design on our watch and spend cash from our clock, because we got to go back and get the grant approved, and that's going to take some time. We can get the Veterans Road improvements approved by FDOT probably by the start of the year, and that's a good trade-off, because from now to the end of the year, it'll be on Jack's desk, GAI designing it. But if we were going to get the grant money to pay for that, then we'd have to push the design start back date to the beginning of the year. So for the amount that's in there and the cash flow, I would say just go ahead with GII out of cash. Only execute this if you have a grant or if you have the approved agreement. And the other item, I'm assuming we didn't formally say that, but my assumption was you wanted to go the grant road. So this motion, I would just add in when it's approved, execute.
You said by January 23rd. This is just design.
January 2023.
That's
3 months. That's 3 months
Right.
away.
It's going to take about Jack thinks about 90 days to design from
Okay,
now to the
I
end of the
understand.
year.
Okay, I misunderstood you. Maybe I thought you said site work completed.
Right. But so if you do this, two things have to happen. If you want to do it with grant, Tracy's going to have to go back to the FDOT, change around our grant agreements, do the administrative work. We'll come back to you sometime between now and the end of the year, and you'll be approving a JPA between the city of Leesburg and FDOT for Venetian Drive site improvements. That'll just be the site improvements. While Tracy's doing that, we'll say, GAI, go design this. Those design costs won't be eligible for the grant unless you wait for the JPA. If you wait for the JPA, that pushes Chris's project, 90, 120 days out, because we got to wait for the JPA. So spend the cash on the design, get the JPA on the improvements, and he should be able to go sometime, like start construction.
We should start construction.
We should start,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what I was a little confused. That's what I was a
Okay,
little confused.
we're starting construction.
Okay, and that's
And I understand Mr. Curry's got some other stuff. He's got some other design. He's got permitting. So hopefully, if everybody's holding hands and the time frames go down, by the time we're done construction, he starts construction.
and I just want to keep this moving forward, so that I think
That's
we're all, I think we're all
that's the
agreed.
best way to do it. It's
Right.
just to pay for the design out of pocket.
So is that
So
need
do
to
we
amend
need-
this?
Yeah, do you need a motion to amend that? Or
Yeah, just having a motion to amend it so that the capital improvements will be made with grant money and not to execute the GAI until a lease is approved.
You make that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
And
In that verbiage.
the capital improvements with FDOT grants, the design with cash, and do not execute the design until the lease is approved by both parties. And if all those three things don't happen, I'll be back to you.
So
So moved.
I just need a second on that. Second. Any comments from the commission on the amendment? If none, any public comments? If none, roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
No.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. So now I just need a motion, approval on the original resolution. So roll call.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
No.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5C8?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a civic organization funding agreement for fiscal year 2022-23 with Leesburg Cemeteries, Inc., and providing an effective date.
Motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Comments from the commission?
I did a one or two, and I spoke to Al about this in the past. Just kind of give me a better background on why we're paying to maintain private property.
Okay, and we talked about this in our discussion during the fiscal year 23 budget and before, when the cemetery has come to seek additional funding or funding from the city. I don't know the original intent as to how this started, but the city has financed the cemetery for some time. I don't, it's been a long time. It's kind of since inception. I've always assumed that the mechanism was it's a municipal duty that did get shifted off to the private sector, and in exchange we've funded it, and we have funded it since I've been here through the civic funding agreement. Since I've been here, I want to say the cemetery folks have come in definitely twice, I don't think three times, for an increase in funding. So if the cemetery trust and Lone Oak doesn't do this, then where does that responsibility fall? My assumption would be that it comes back to the city as a municipal cemetery, and then you're in the cemetery business. I don't know their financials inside and out. We did present you with their outline of their financials to justify the increase. This action is budgeted. You contemplated it over the summer. I think the rough numbers, it was about $110,000 we funded. This is an agreement out of the civic grant funding, which is SOP for $160 a year. And I think that I don't know if I answered that question well enough. Why is it this way? It's been historically that way, and it's probably a duty that but for them doing it would be our responsibility. If it's our responsibility, you're probably paying a little bit more to maintain and sell lots than the 160. So it's just kind of always been that setup, Commissioner.
Well, I mean, I have not seen their financials, but what do they do with the money they're making?
That goes back in their operations. So their funds come from sale of lots and our funding. And then whatever contributions they have and their trust.
What are they spending it on?
Maintenance, paying their folks, digging graves, cutting the grass,
And what's
maintaining the cemetery, paying the electric
What's
bill.
the 161 going to?
All those things.
So
So
we're
when-
supplementing half with them, and they're paying their share.
I think they're paying their share.
I'll give you my simple view on this. We got the private sector running it, mostly volunteers. And at the end of the day, I just believe they can do it more efficiently than the city. I know Al gets upset when I say that, but I think it costs us more than $160,000 if we had to take it back. And I appreciate this group's support. That's my comments on it.
And
You may know more history on it.
ever since I've been here, it was 100,000. But Shady Oaks is one off of Dixie. It's completely sold out. So they're basically just maintaining that. They can't sell it. There's no lots to sell at Shady Oaks. So they're basically maintaining that cemetery. So basically, Lone Oak's the only one they can make money off of. And just talking to people in the funeral business, it's not as lucrative as many of us think. Most people now are doing cremations. And when I had to use their services, I think the vault, I think that may be sold out as well. So I don't think they have many options as to expansion. So well, I was always told on the commissions that if they don't do it, then it comes back to the city of Leesburg. Now, I don't know if that's factual, but that's what we've been hearing for the last 20 years. So maybe Al can look into that, but I think that's kind of
I think that's where you're. I mean, I think that's where you're at. You're looking at a cemetery, and most of the cemeteries, you know, those funds go off two ways. When my time in Sebastian was, you sell a plot or a niche for X bucks, and you split that money, and half of that goes into your operation costs, and then the other half goes into the trust. And the trust is set up so that when the cemetery is filled with lots and no more niches, then that trust is that so then you're operating the maintenance on a trust, which is interest earnings. So with your comment there, that backs that up. So you're looking at a cemetery that's sold out. I don't know what that's bad to say, but you know it's sold out. So those revenue opportunities to sell plots is not there. So then you're coming back to interest earnings and not a good mechanism to do the maintenance. And $1.60 to do the maintenance of two cemeteries just ain't a crazy number.
My only comment on this is I want to make sure with the increase that the Shady Oak Cemetery is maintained to a good standard.
And recently you've also given the cemetery some ARP money for equipment.
Yes.
They've promised better
Correct.
maintenance at Shady Oaks.
Yes.
And I would just put in the pot there, you know, this is the second increase in 2 or 3 years, so we really shouldn't see them back for several years, you know. Just kind of my tickler file would be, I don't suspect to see Murray for 5 years.
And Frank Stivender. Any other comments from the commission? Any public comments? If none, roll call.
Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Probably not.
Commissioner Christian.
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5C9?
Excuse me.
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, accepting a right-of-way deed for the streets in Bradford Ridge and maintenance obligations associated therewith and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Comments from the commission?
Yes, a couple. Al, could you explain again, because I know we spoke on the phone, but why we're considering having to accept these roads that my understanding were not part of the original agreement?
Okay. So longer explanation again. The city's practice on new subdivisions has been, and we've done this, I blamed it on Bill Wiley instead of Dan Miller. And that's no disrespect to Bill out there. I'm sure Bill listens. But the historic practice had been when we started doing annexations years and years ago under Bill Wiley's time, we did PUDs, just like we do nowadays. And in the PUDs, there's language that says the city may dedicate your streets and the city may accept dedication of your stormwater improvements. Well, the operative word in the PUDs is may. Forever, since we've done these PUD agreements and we've done these annexations, may became the general practice of the city's not going to accept dedication. So developers have accepted may in the PUDs, and they've accepted the city saying we're not taking dedication. All the while, the word was may. Recently, the word may has been questioned by developers. I speculate that that word is getting questioned because as construction expenses are increasing and interest rates are going up, it's getting harder to meet the magic number to sell that home. So where the numbers and the issue is hitting the point is in the past, developers have accepted our may in the PUD, And instead, they formed HOAs or CDDs, and they've shifted off the maintenance responsibility into an HOA or CDD, which could range anywhere between $50 to $300 a month. So that's probably the magic number. So mortgages have gone up surely $50 to $300 a month recently. And where I think the developers' performers are starting to fail is as they're seeing their mortgage costs go up, that potential buyer doesn't have the money for the CDD. And then the question comes back to the city, isn't it government's job to take care of these roads anyway? I frankly think the answer to that equation is yes. That is our job. But we have a however. However, you need to build the roads to our specs. And you need to ensure that when you dedicate a road to us, it's at least got a life of 20 or 30 years. So all the while we've been going down the word with the operative word being may, we haven't inspected roads because they weren't coming home to us. That issue is starting to pop up now. So the first one that tests this policy is Bradford, is Bradford Ridge here, and it's a smaller subdivision in Sunnyside, 48 units, 50 units, Dan. 53 units. So a smaller subdivision over Sunnyside. Paquette did the road development. When the developers reached out to us to contemplate this, if the city would change the PUD and change the may to the city shall accept dedication, which is what you're being asked to do, the response was, well, let me send the public work folks out. Let me check your streets, and let me make sure your streets are in a condition where they're acceptable to city standards because we didn't inspect them. So we did that. And as you know, we've kind of changed public works a little bit to deal better with development and watch these pre-construction issues, suspicioning that maybe the way we do business is going to change. So we added some positions in there. Ryan Gurdon is our site development coordinator right now. He worked with Paquette to go visit this. So basically, the developers gambled a little bit. So for the right to ask you, the right to ask you this question, the developers were required to fix the roads with. You got to fix them to our standards, which they have, and provide the 2-year maintenance bond. So that's basically, so we accept dedication. If the street blows up in 2 years, we pull the bond, we make the improvements. If they make it past the first 2-year test, yay, it's our street, then it's deemed that this is probably going to be reasonable. And then remember, when you bring on these subdivisions, it does two things. It does increase taxes. So remember, every house in there is paying 4 mills for their value. So that's not a huge number. But then again, too, we're not paving streets all the time. So they're adding to the general value of the community. They're being built to a spec. Population increase technically should increase our local gas option revenue. So that's kind of our perpetual money where we go by and do overlays. So when that street needs a resurfacing, that overlay money should be in there. So I would say, yeah, it's a little bit of a risk to the city, but that is our job, is to maintain these in perpetuity. And I probably think we need to look at changing the way we do business as new subdivisions come in, and this is the test case. So the question being asked is, do you want to do, I would look to the city attorney if this is a precedent-setting matter. I kind of always think precedent is always arguable. I don't think it necessarily changes the precedent. But it certainly sets the stage of, all right, we'll accept these streets. And I think if you do it on this test case, some of the other subdivisions that are on the books will be coming back to you saying, hey, let's re-examine that may word in the PUDs that you've previously approved.
So you and I discussed this briefly today. Be sure I'm clear. Are we inspecting the roads now, or are we talking about inspecting the roads? On the subdivisions we're approving right now, are we?
The subdivisions that we're approving right now, we are set up to better inspect them. But the subdivisions that you've approved right now really aren't under construction. Now, they are in a couple of spots. Ostrander is the first one that pops to head. Ryan's out there. Ryan's keeping in touch with them. They haven't come to us and said, will you accept dedication of this road? It's still a may, so our answer to them is no. If they start pushing the envelope, Ryan will be out there watching it, so we'll come back. Well, so the word of mouth right now that's coming from Public Works to the developers is, we still don't take them, and if you want to change that word may in there, you better build them to the standard. So we keep a cavalier eye on this issue because we anticipate that these guys will be coming back to us, and we'll have a good feel for who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong.
Did I understand you to say today that Paquette did go back and do some work or made some minor?
Paquette went back and fixed
So,
the
I mean,
streets.
as far as precedents, I think we're sending a message, that if we're
If
going to
you-
take the roads back, they're going to have to be satisfactory to the city.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to be
I
sure. we're
feel
all
very
clear on that.
comfortable with
Okay.
that.
So just as an aside, with our PUDs now, can we also, with our build them to our standards, include that maintenance
Dan is
bond
starting
clause?
to do. You're starting to do that language. Are you still using may?
The current PUDs, Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning, the current PUDs state that all roads within the development have to be constructed to city standards. They say that should the permittee desire to dedicate the street's internal road system to the city of Leesburg, it repeats they have to demonstrate to us, to our satisfaction. And then finally, it says if the permittee chooses to retain the roadways, they have to create either some type of property owners or homeowners property owner association, CDD, something like that to pay for it.
Okay. No, thank you, Dan.
It's just, my opinion is similar to Al's. I think if we're going to approve bringing these county properties into the city, that it's our responsibility to maintain those properties. That being said, I also think the developers should be responsible for building roads according to our standards and potentially having to do a maintenance bond to make sure they are before we will accept the roads. If they don't meet the standards, then the bond's there to bring them up.
We do that now, Commissioner.
Okay, good.
I mean, we have private roads currently in the city now.
Yes.
Arlington
don't.
Ridge Legacy, I think, right off the top of my
That we
head.
don't maintain, so I don't know why we would want to change from what we've done. Plus, in those developments, they have an HOA or slash CDD, they may have both, that take those into account as far as the fees they pay to live there to take care of the roads. I just don't know why we would want to assume an additional responsibility financially to start maintaining all these roads throughout the city that I don't think we should be.
Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, so, because I didn't bring this specific one up, but I did bring up the idea that we better figure out a way to take over these roads, because my concern, and I don't disagree with anything Commissioner Canal said. From philosophically, I think you're right. But what I'm concerned with is that what's going to happen is 20 years from now, 50 residents are going to come in the commission chamber because their little HOA, very different than Legacy Arlington Ridge, didn't charge the appropriate stuff. And then when 50 residents come in and complain about how their streets aren't safe
roads are
and
full
all
of potholes.
this, and we can't afford to do this, and the city should have paid more attention, we're going to pay for it. So might as well make sure that the roads are in good condition, because my feeling is outside of these big, well-run subdivisions, like, we're just going to end up being on the hook for it anyways, whether I like it or not.
Well, you just said what I was going to say, but you said it much better.
Yeah, and we're already there is a classic example of that. So so the subdivisions that are a little higher end, little higher price value on their home, Arlington Ridge Legacy, we've got no issues with their roads. A little bit more, and everybody said workforce housing, little more market rate. Lake Denham Estates is that area. Lake Denham Estates roads are horrible. And Public Works has been working with that. So that was an area. So, and that's where the city, under the existing policy, we're not going to do it. We're going to close our eyes. This is what Commissioner Roebuck just said is that's the situation. So at one form or another, this issue is going to come to roost with us. And if we close our eyes and stick our head in the sand and say, we don't want this, okay, cool. But that's not going to preclude the people knocking on our doors, which is what they're doing already now.
So my question, Al, is on that note, are we evaluating to make sure we're charging the appropriate taxes or fees to pay for those roads 10 or 20 years down the road. And what Commissioner Cornell is saying, if we're have a subdivision that does not have a HOA, does not have a CDD, they just basically gave this person a CO to their new home, and the road in front is pretty much a road that nobody owns except the developer who's not going to disappear. So if it comes back to us, we're looking to say, are we charging enough appropriate city taxes? So in 20 years, 10 years, when we now have assumed a vast number of roads, I'm thinking about the Overlook, some of the older subdivisions that are going to come and need repair, where do we get this money from?
General revenues of the city, and we look at it and adjust it every year.
Okay.
A great comment. I mean,
We
I
are
understand.
growing. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments from the commission? Any public comments? If none, roll call.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
No.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes.
We're going to find something Commissioner Cornell going to vote yes on tonight.
Someone please introduce 5C10.
Or do you just ask you read by title only?
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg,
This might not
Florida,
be it.
authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement between the City of Leesburg and Lake Economic Area Development Corporation, LEAD, a registered Florida not-for-profit corporation, and providing an effective date.
Motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Comments? Cannell?
I did have.
Do have it.
Yeah, I do have one.
Commissioner Cannell, I'm sorry.
You're good, Mike. Or Mayor Mike. Do we have anything? I mean, we're talking about giving them $28,000, which, like I said, I'm fine with that. But any type of performance agreement of what they're actually going to do for us, or what they're going to attempt to do, and is there any type of evaluation of
It's in
if
there.
they actually did? I spoke to Al earlier.
I thought there was too much in there.
I didn't see a specific. I mean, it's a year agreement, and I think by a year agreement, you're gonna evaluate them on an annual basis whether spending $28,000 is worth it to have a private economic development arm or not.
Yeah, so I give you a little clarity. I'm on the board. It's not a conflict because I'm actually paying to be on the board as opposed to getting paid to be on the board, but in this case. But so we will be reporting the metrics in the agreement quarterly. If you guys really want to see me back, I'll come quarterly and tell them to you. I'd prefer if I could just
Just an email.
But no, but I know I do get what you're saying.
Like I
is
said,
that
I
we'll
just
be
want to make sure we're
reporting
not going to
quarterly.
start, giving out $30,000 and have no understanding or idea of what they're actually doing with the money.
Absolutely, and I can tell you, that if they don't provide results, I'll be cutting my funding, and I'll be the first one coming to tell you guys you should cut your funding too, because that's absolutely. I'm excited. We had some meetings already, and of kind of the two areas that kind of most promising for industrial development. One of them's in Leesburg, and that's actually two of them are in Leesburg, frankly. The South 27, we got the Turnpike and then outgoing 44. Already have people looking out there. But yeah, absolutely, we'll be reporting these quarterly.
Any other comments from the commission?
Jess, I see the responsibilities from the city. Al, who's going to be that point person? That's you?
That's me.
Okay. So you're not going to be too busy and running this big
No.
old city. And
No,
Well, Commissioner Roebuck's visiting us quarterly.
I'm not going to be commissioner anymore.
he'll be at the other side.
No, that-
he'll be irritated, aggravated.
Obviously,
now.
economic development roots itself in my office, so it's not a major deviation.
Any other comments? Any public comments? If none, roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5C12?
Or do you just ask for read by title only?
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a gas service agreement among the City of Leesburg, Florida, and Berglund Investments LLC and D.R. Horton, Inc. for provision of natural gas to the subdivision known as Heritage, the Cottages of Sanders Grove, and providing an effective date.
Motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Comments? Commissioner?
Yes, I did. Al, can you just kind of briefly, not long-winded, briefly give us a background on this?
I will. And if obviously we threw all these on the consent agenda and.
Set the timer,
You know,
Mike.
all right, 3 minutes. Okay. Once upon a time, this subdivision is located on north side of 48, almost kind of adjacent to. Are you really guys putting me on the clock?
254.
Do I get to restart?
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe.
No, north of 48, north of the Legacy back entry. And this subdivision was built back in 2005. At that time, we did the gas servicing, the gas service agreement differently. These days, when we have the rule that when a gas subdivision comes into the city limits, you have to develop it as a gas subdivision and provide a certain amount of gas appliances, and we require the developer to pay the development costs up front. We did not do this back in 2005, or at least we did not do this for this agreement. So we had an agreement between the city gas department and Pringle Development at the time that the city would go in and put in gas infrastructure as long as the Pringle Development built houses that used gas appliances. And there was about 166 of these units. I'm gonna call them estate units. I don't know how big they are, but they're not the typical 50 front lot units that you approve these days. Dan's rolling his eyes. They're a little bit bigger in there, I believe. Little more upscale. In any case, when we entered into that agreement, it said if we didn't get our number count, 160 some odd units in 3 years, then they have to pay us back. Well, 3 years came and went. 166 units weren't built. Probably only a handful. 2008 came, which would be the time to come get our money back and say, you didn't perform your end of the deal, you owe us for the gas improvements. We never chased Pringle down for that. Sometime along the way in there, the Pringle Corporation went bankrupt, so that entity is non-existent. So now you have D.R. Horton and Berglund Investments, LLC, purchasing the remainder of those lots and developing it as platted, as developed. So we requested an upfront payment for the remaining gas infrastructure. They balked at it and said, that agreement's not for us. It doesn't involve us. So the intent was to have these gas subdivisions, being that it would be difficult to hold the current developers to that old standard. We met in the middle. And so we're asking the developer to pay $1,000 per unit as the units are developed. So instead of cash up front, it's every time they pull a permit, before they pull the permit, they got to pay $1,000 that goes towards the gas. And what the $1,000 covers is the extension costs. So it's not quite $2,000 to hook up the remaining houses, but between the tap of the existing main, boring under the existing road, the service line, the laterals, and setting the meter, it's all just a tick under $2,000. So the gas department will pick up the cost above $1,000. The developer will pay $1,000 at the time their permit is pulled.
No, thank you, Al. I mean, we talked about that.
And we don't do business like this anymore.
Okay, so how many units are still left to be built out there?
About 160. So there's
about $160,000.
about 163. So there's about $163,000 exposure to the gas department. The ROI on that's about 7 years. We typically do a 3-year ROI, return on investment. So it's not the greatest, but at the end of the day, here's what we're up against. We've already invested about $80,000 in gas main. B, a fight on whether we have to force the developers to build a gas subdivision So the worst case scenario is we spend legal fees to fight them. We lose. They don't build a gas subdivision. So now we got gas main in the subdivision that's never going to use gas. The middle ground was the developer was, okay, we'll do $1,000 per unit when we pull the permit. And even though there's a little ROI on there, at the end of the day, we ensure that after 7 years, the gas department's investment is returned. Now, $163,000 in exposure for the city. In the gas department, that's not a big gas department number. And I hope that the gas department in the next year has to come up with 163 connections. If I'm a betting man, I'm saying we're not going to see that number. Citywide, the number of COs issued a month that we've sustained is around 70. So I don't suspect that this subdivision is going to build that quick and put that much stress on the gas department. I would assume probably a handful a year until the 163 is filled. So that's not a crazy amount. That's even, frankly, a budgetary amount. So I think we can reasonably manage it financially on our end, have a reasonable end, and perhaps this was one of the things that before I got here is why we changed the way we do the gas development agreements today.
Any other comments from the commission? Any public comments? If none, roll call.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Burry?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Abstain.
Oh, sorry. Abstain. Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes. Moving on to public hearings and non-routine items. Second reading of ordinances. I'm going to ask that we introduce 6A1, 2, and 3. We can discuss them all at one time, and we'll come back and vote on them individually. So if someone please introduce 6A1, 2, and 3.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
6A1, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 9.74 plus minus acres, being generally located east of Sleepy Hollow Road and north of Sunnyside Drive, lying in Section 29, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 1 and providing an effective date. 6A2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 9.74 plus minus acres from Lake County Rural Transition to City of Leesburg Estate Residential for property generally located east of Sleepy Hollow Road and north of Sunnyside Drive as legally described in Section 29, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A3, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 9.74 plus minus acres from Lake County R1 Rural Residential to City of Leesburg SPUD Small Plan Unit Development to allow a single-family residential development for property generally located east of Sleepy Hollow Road and north of Sunnyside Drive as legally described in Section 29, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you. So now, items 2 and 3 are quasi-judicial, so I'm going to turn to our city attorney and let her take over for a second.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners and members of the public. So this portion of the meeting is quasi-judicial, so if anybody's going to be speaking on these items, including city staff, please stand and raise your right hand, and I'll go ahead and swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give today is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion on 6A1.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Dan, you have some comments first?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is Fraser Sleepy Hollow Project, annexation, small-scale comp plan, and PUD. It's just east of Sleepy Hollow Road, north of Sunnyside. It's 9.74 acres. It's all single-family, 2.7 units an acre. 6,000 square foot minimum lots, 1,700 square foot on the houses with 2-car garages, architectural standards, 25-foot buffer around the entire property, dark sky lighting, tree in each yard, 35% minimum open space, gutter requirements appropriately for any lot less than 50 feet, or, excuse me, less than 60 feet. And then, and we did mention tree requirements and 2-car garage. 27 units, so it's pretty small, but it's ready to go.
Okay.
And Mr. Jeff Summit and Mr. Jason Lee are here if you have any other questions.
Okay. And so does the developer have any comments this time?
Any questions we have?
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Comments from the commission?
Only that as part of my district, there's no objection from the property owners in the area. This is north of the boundary that's determined to be more congested versus more spacious, so it's fine.
Any other?
And I think we just need to update the commission district. It says 1, so the new district will be a different number.
Yes, sir, that would take effect January 1, I believe.
Okay.
It does, it's District 1, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, my district is not District 1.
He's one now.
You're 5 right now. It's
It's
1.
gonna be one. I'm gonna.
It's using the current number.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, we will
So
update
you'll
it though,
update.
yes, sir.
So those will all give it it will ultimately be 5, but 1 is the right one for the ordinance. And
Okay.
Okay.
it's right.
Okay.
No more confusion.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Any public comments? If none, roll call.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Just need a motion on 6A2.
Move for approval.
Second.
I guess no comments from staff or developer. Comments from the commission? If none, public comments? If none, roll call.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Okay, so I need a motion on 6A3.
So move.
Second.
Comments from the commission? Comments from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Items 4, 5, and 6 will be, need a motion to continue to November 28th.
Yeah, so on that, the developer's asking for this item to be carried over. At your last meeting, you had the question, they proposed they wanted to do A type of development and B type of development. I think the consensus direction from the commission to them was, we'll approve A or B, but not both. So the developers are back doing their homework, and they haven't come up with their final answer, A or B, so they wanted more time.
To the 28th of November. please.
Andy, is that the next, is that, with the meeting date changes, that's correct?
Yes, sir, November 28th.
So I'm thinking you got to open these, read them, and then, do they need to read it? Open it, read it, and then postpone it. So read each.
Okay.
And then I think one motion to say postpone these items 4, 5, and 6 till 11/24 is good. But I think for formality purpose, you got to read it.
Okay, no, thank you for that clarification. So would someone please introduce 6A, 4, 5, and 6?
All right, then the motion to.
Introduced, to be read by title only, please.
6A4, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 49 plus minus acres, being generally located west of County Road 44 and north and south of Sing Road, lying in Section 16, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, provided that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3 and providing an effective date. 6A5, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 49 plus minus acres from Lake County Rural Transition to City of Leesburg Estate Residential for property generally located west of County Road 44 and north and south of Sing Road, lying in Section 16, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A6, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 49 plus minus acres from Lake County R1 Rural Residential to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to allow a single-family residential development for property generally located west of County Road 44 and north and south of Sing Road, lying in Section 16, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
So I just need a motion to continue to November 28th.
So moved.
I did just have one question. In here it says it'll go in Commission District 3. It's on Sing Road, right? Isn't that one?
That should be what?
Yeah, so we've got I'm sorry, I didn't catch that
Okay,
earlier.
no, you're good. No, thank you. Okay, so I just need a second.
Second.
Okay.
I'm not saying anything.
Any additional comments? Any additional comments from the commission? Public comments? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes.
I can do this in 30 seconds. On the district question, the districts aren't technically the new districts until the new commissioners are elected. So until such time, we're use the old numbers.
Okay.
So come January,
So I'm not saying anything.
everything's different.
Got it. Okay, first reading of ordinances, none. Moving on to non-routine items. Fluoride application in the city's public water supply. Discussion.
You want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think we have some speakers in the audience. I'll let you
All
start.
right. So the Commissioner Burry brought this issue before the commission, I think 2 meetings ago. And Commissioner Burry, I will tell you, as well as another elected official, Bill Mathias, both had conversation with me, sidebars, where do we have a couple dentists in town who have noticed that we don't have fluoride. So the Commissioner Burry, in short order, has asked for the city to tackle this question. Question being, to fluoride or not fluoride the water. I believe Commissioner Burry will be an advocate, as he'll discuss with you this evening, that we should fluoride the water. So, quick background. We had this discussion when Commissioner Burry brought the topic before us, and really the subject matter hasn't changed, the data hasn't changed. What on that front, and that front is, I think by all practical purposes, adding fluoride into the public water system, which was started in the 1940s, was deemed as one of the 10 greatest public health accomplishments we've ever done. That thought has stayed in place to this date. Probably starting in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, as we review policies from time to time, there began a school of thought that said, adding fluoride into water isn't that great. Because in the 50 years, so the 1990s to 2000s, so in the 50 years that time has passed since we added fluoride to water, dental treatments had changed, sources of fluoride had changed. Now more foods and more things that we consume have fluoride in them. Therefore, we don't need to put fluoride in the water. And the opposite, the anti-put fluoride side in the water would argue that too much fluoride or fluoride is unsafe to handle. Fluoride is an additional expense. And if you put too much, and it kind of a little bit of a scare tactic in there, if you put too much fluoride in the water, then it becomes counterproductive in the things that we're trying to do to prevent cavities and growing stronger enamel. It goes opposite. And so their counter argument is correct. But then the counter argument that the American Dentists Association and sources that support putting fluoride in the water would say, dude, that's happened, and the proof that somebody has suffered from too much fluoride in the water is untrackable, not traceable. So it's not a reasonable argument. In any case, today, upwards of probably 80% of all public water systems continue to put fluoride in the water. Leesburg is different. Lake County is different. I can't answer that question. There's only 3 communities in Lake County that put fluoride in the water: Eustis, Tavares, and Umatilla. Leesburg, as for Leesburg, we stopped putting fluoride in the water in the early 2000s, and for the simple reasons of money and employee safety. I think employee safety is a bit of a misnomer. Handling fluoride is another added factor in treating water. Employees have to handle chemicals. They're trained to do this. It's PEP, they wear their PEP. They have a different facility, and putting fluoride in the water would require an extra step and an expense. Talk about that in a second. But I wouldn't deem it unsafe. I would say it makes their job harder, but that's why we trust our water treatment professionals to deal with these type of things. So having said that, in the 2000s, we took fluoride out of the water because we were in the process of upgrading the wastewater treatment plant. And the SCADA systems needed upgraded, different pumping systems needed upgraded, different facilities needed upgraded, and at the end of the day, we saved some money to not upgrade the system, so we stopped putting fluoride in the water at that time, which is probably a good 20 years ago. The question hasn't been raised. I tackled it once long ago in a different city, and I won't even remember which one it was, but we never went back and we added fluoride. I want to say it was probably Fort Meade. Don't hold me to that. But I've heard the conversation. Again, that's where we're at. So we discussed that 2 meetings ago. Mr. Commissioner Burry said, well, bring us the numbers so that the commission can kind of choose, do we want to revisit this or not revisit this? And the numbers were put in the packet. It's about $601,000 of one-time capital costs to get all the pumps, get the SCADA systems, get the different buildings, and there's the different injection sources on how we treat water. So $600,000 to get everything set up, and about $75,000 a year for the chemical.
Talk about the water usage, the breakdown that you and I discussed. The average use by a person.
So those are your costs. So if you decide tonight to put fluoride in the water, you're looking at a cost of capital improvement cost of the $600, and you're looking at a cost of $75 for operations on a recurring basis. So the question becomes, how much water is consumed? That answer I don't know, but here's the answer that is factual that we do know. Per capita, the city of Leesburg uses 152 gallons of water per person per day. The standard bearer that the water district wants to see is 150 gallons of water per person per day. We can probably get under their requirement pretty quick, and we will be getting it under pretty quick because we got a CUP that's going out to them on a side note. So, but use that number, 152 gallons per day per person on the Leesburg water system. I think the other sources will say the average consumption of water by a person is a gallon. So of the 152 a day, 1 gallon of that potentially is getting in somebody's body.
And I did not have an agenda with that. I think, that needs to be out there. The commission needs to fully understand all the issues. I know there's some people in the audience I think want to speak. Is there any comments from the commission at this time? Or do you want to hear maybe from other people first?
Sure.
And I don't know.
Yeah. Sure. All right. My name is Dave Wollenschlager. I'm an orthodontist. I started my practice here in the city of Leesburg back in 1990. And, I would see a number of patients that would come in with what I would say gross decay. It was a handful. And probably in the mid-2000s, I started to notice that children were coming in and there were just cavities all over the place. And it got to a point that I called the city and I found out that, when I looked at my latest water report, that there wasn't any fluoride in the water anymore. And I asked, and they said, well, the machine was broken and it cost too much to fix it. But over those next 10-year period, I am seeing more and more and more of it. It just made me sick to my stomach.
I mean, it's just, you pop off the braces off these kids' teeth or look around and it's just terrible. Cost of dental care is just going up, up, and up, and we don't have a lot of pediatric dentists in Leesburg or in Lake County for that matter. And, you know, you go to call a pediatric dentist and, you know, we're looking at 3 to 6 months before you get an appointment to get a cavity filled. Some of these parents bring in their bills and you will see $3,000 to $6,000 bills. They can't afford to do this, so the teeth end up being taken out. It's just untenable. Sometimes leaders just have to protect their citizens from themselves. That's all there is to it, and you have to make tough choices. I know that there's grant money available to help pay for getting the system back online, maybe up to a couple $100,000. You know, the water isn't just consumed by drinking it. Obviously, it gets absorbed into the food that you eat. These are not just fictional things. This is real. I mean, this is not something that you have to sit there and wonder about whether or not this is going to be successful. It's successful around the country. I was fortunate to grow up in Colorado Springs where the water was naturally fluoridated. I have to say I don't have a cavity in my mouth, and I wish every citizen of Leesburg would be able to have that same benefit, but it just doesn't work out that way unless you take some steps, in this particular case, to fluoridate the water. So I don't have much to add to that. It's just, if you would see it, you would just cringe. Average cost for the Leesburg citizen would be about $2.60 per year. Return on that, with the way inflation is going, maybe $150 per citizen per year. I just, you know, we were doing it before. There are only commissioners, you know, 30 years ago that were making these very tough decisions back then when there was less information about fluoride, but here we are in year 70. So I implore you to you know, get this back on track and take advantage of this grant money. And this is something that helps wealthy people as well as poor people, and especially the people who can afford it least would benefit the most. So, questions that you might have for me?
Questions from the commission? No, I'm good. No, thank you.
Well, that, and I hate to see us lagging behind the other communities that are right around us to boot, you know, and it's like, that kind of sucks. Anyway. Thank you.
Dr. Warren, you mentioned some grant funding.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's, yeah, please.
So I'm Dr. Wade Winker. I practice dentistry in Eustis, where we are fluoridated. I also live at 728 Boylston Street in Leesburg and have 2 grandchildren growing up in this community. This is something that, again, I second all the numbers that Dr. Wollenschlager shared with you. As far as the grant money goes, in contacts today with the Florida Department of Health as well as the Center for Disease Control, there is currently $250,000 in grant money available. As the one person I spoke with today, and I'm not encouraging you to do this because I'm going to say something else in a minute, if you were to vote this in tonight, we'd probably have a very good shot at getting that. We are considered a startup at this point, even though we had it once upon a time. The startups get preferential treatment towards that money, so that's working in our favor. My recommendation, and this is the way I've seen it done in other cities around the town, around the county, when people have considered either removing fluoride or considering putting it in, they have a public workshop, because I think you're going to get a whole lot of pushback on this if the public isn't duly noticed on it. I will have experts here whenever you have that workshop, and we will probably just say, we all agree with what Dr. Johnson is saying, and we'll let him take it from there. Unless you use the clock, then we'll each come up and do a little part.
By the way, I didn't start the clock on you.
In the meantime, I'd be more than happy to share information with you. One of the points that Dr. Wollenschlager made, and this is very well documented through our 70-year history, is fluoridation of a community water supply seems to benefit the lower economic residents more than it affects the higher economics. My only explanation I can give you for that is the people in the higher socioeconomic areas are getting more routine dental care because of the cost of it. So how about if we go upriver and just stop it or delay it or decrease it significantly by a supplement that can do it. Concentration is key. You're going to hear all kinds of crazy reports about people breaking hips and arms because they have too much fluoride. That's very well documented. Denver is a place that has about 24 parts per million. We're advocating for 0.7. That's the right concentration. Just like any other substance, it can be poison in the wrong concentration. You drink too much water, you can die. Hypokalemia. Things that are very, very safe, and you're going to hear all kinds of wild reports about that. If I were to line up all the research that the American Dental Association did, printed it on paper, it would fill this room. If they were to line up their anti-fluoridation reports, and most of it is pseudoscience, it would fit in about 3 boxes in the corner. There's quite a bit of information out there, but don't stop right there. Any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
The grant process, would it benefit us to approve it now and go for a grant, or should we wait? I don't want to mess up our opportunity for grant money if it's available.
Yeah, and again, Mr. Minner, you may have a better idea if that would be in order. That would be my only concern, is we may be out of order to do something like that. I'm going to continue to investigate it, so we'll be just...
Well, I hope you appreciate that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have a good answer for you. I'm not super familiar with that grant. I know Commissioner Burry sent me some stuff on it. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
It's the grant itself.
So, I don't know if this... I would advise that this body not make the decision based on whether you get grant money or not. I think you want to make the decision on, this is the public health initiative that we want to undertake regardless of grant money. If we get the grant money, then that's just icing on the cake, and then that won't cost us as much. From a financial perspective, $500,000, $600,000 is a lot. The $75,000 a year, it's not so bad. So I'm not going to say this doesn't wig me out financially. If it was, I would say my wig out number is going to be like $1 million, $1.5 million, and I'd be saying, whoa. But at this number, it's a little bit. There's a couple things that we have to do financially in the water department this year, and that's we got to fix the pipe on 27 where it's too small. We got to expand that. We got to get that project done. We've also got to get the water tower project done. Because those are key to the growth and development in the South. So now throw another $500,000 on the CIP plate, I'm not spazzing out. So if you've got to do it, I would probably tell Cliff to start getting it done. We'd probably pinch off some money from cash reserves to do it this year or get it started this year. That'll probably affect programming next year. What it's probably going to do is kick down a main exchange pipe or main change-out pipe in fiscal year 24. And then if we get grant money, yay. So I would make this decision based on the philosophy that this is a public health incentive and it's worth the money.
Yeah, and what I was trying to say was I wasn't trying to condition it on a grant. I just didn't want to approve it tonight and find out if we had waited 2 weeks or 4 weeks, we might have been eligible for a $250 grant. That was my question.
My knee-jerk reaction, this is knee-jerk, is that if we're going to apply for a grant, then I want to make sure that the legislative body approves it.
Okay.
So I don't want to go ask for a grant and then it get rejected.
Okay, and that's what I thought. I just want to be sure.
So.
Okay, no, I'm good. Any questions of Dr. Winker?
Can I just make one closing comment? And this seems to be awfully obvious to me, but the financial disadvantage to doing this is to me and to him and the other dentists out there. We won't have as many cavities to fix. Hopefully you can appreciate the altruism that we're here speaking for something that'll put us on the golf course more frequently. Thank you.
And I appreciate that.
And just on the public health workshap, your suggestion that we do, Will you work with our staff to put that
Absolutely.
together? Okay.
Yeah, and my only comment would be, so we have what are called the anti-fluoridationists, and you'll start hearing from them. I think you probably need to open up communication with them as well. In all fairness, it's not a fair fight, so bring them on. But yeah, we'll have some outstanding resources for you.
And I'm looking at Al. I don't want to drag this out. I mean, can
Well,
we,
that was
can we
where
bring it
you
back
saw
in 2
me.
weeks?
You saw the deer in the
I
headlights
know.
look because you guys have been yelling at me because I've been speaking too much. I think you probably know what my position on this. I appreciate Dr. Winker saying let's do this to workshop. I'm going to advise you not to do workshop. This is why you guys are elected. This was an agendized meeting. We stopped doing it in the cloak of darkness, although we didn't. We did it legit, but we didn't have a big workshop that said stop it, and we stopped it. And so we've had 2 meetings on this now. Commissioner Brewer brought it up during his matters. It's been agendized. I got public input. I'm guessing that we're going to get some opposite here. So I would say let's do this. If we're going to do it, that's how it was put on the vote. There's a resolution that says that. It's been duly advertised. You've done your due diligence. So I think it's time to go or not go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will keep this super brief. Jesse Flynn, 2204 Vine Street in Leesburg. I am not anti-fluoride per se. I'm not trying to bash fluoride. I think more so I was just trying to see if there was a way that we could put this out in front of the public, because not everybody gets to go to a commission meeting at 5:30 on a Monday. And I think if it's one thing I learned during the entire utility thing is that a lot of the citizens or residents of Leesburg don't pay attention. So I don't know if there's something where when people are starting to care more about what's going on in their bodies, whether or not I agree or disagree with that, I feel like people will be passionate with their argument on it. So I would be very much in favor of Dr. Winker saying having a public workshop of some form so that there could be some more due diligence on having people saying that you've educated them on what they're doing. And that's all.
So I think I kind of agree with both. I think we should go forward and we should do it, and that should be it. And then we should all have a public workshop where people can come and learn about the benefits and then the cons. And if they still think that it's a bad idea, then they can go get bottled water, and I'm all fine with that and not have the fluoride. But
We can always invite the good doctors to be on Lakefront TV.
they can be on Lakefront TV. I'm okay with it, and I'll just say, because I mentioned this before, but since people probably watch this meeting, is I did look at this, and they're absolutely right. Most of these like studies that claim they like to say that it messes with kids' hormones, specifically TSH, and they all reference one study in India that was, the study design was awful, but even with that, the group that they considered the control, the no fluoride, had 1 part per million. So the group that they say had no fluoride and so doesn't have any problems has more fluoride naturally than we're talking about putting in our water. The group where they showed with some kids that maybe there were some problems in this really small study, we're getting like 5 parts per million. So there's just nothing there, and I have no problem. So if the anti-fluoride people want to email me, they can certainly do that, and I'll be happy to send them an email back.
Daryl Crane, Helms Avenue in Leesburg. Al is right. You are elected to make the hard decisions, but you're also elected to represent your constituents. I think this is something that needs to go in front of the people of Leesburg in workshops and give them an opportunity to give you feedback. Thank you.
Chris Waldenschlager, work here as an orthodontist. The workshop is for something I feel that is something maybe that is unknown or unestablished. Fluoride studies have been around for 70 years. I think it's hard pressed to say that most people don't have some idea or some ideas about fluoride and its benefits. I feel like most people who are against fluoride are well established in their thoughts and their theories, and they're probably not going to change that based on a workshop. So my thoughts are that we should be trying to, someone's got to make a decision, and there's going to be people who will disagree with it, but because of their thoughts and their theories on it. But we've already established, science has well established the benefits of this, and I don't see why we need to workshop that when it's already out there.
Yeah. Well, when Commissioner Burry brought it up, I said it on the record. I thought we had fluoride in our water. I thought I'd been drinking it for 25 years. Well, Looking to the commission. If somebody else-
I've spoke to several people in my district, and they don't want it in their water. They just don't want it, and I don't know, we should force it on people that don't want it in their drinking water. And I do believe it's a tremendous cost, especially when, I mean, we don't know percentage-wise how many people in Leesburg actually want it in their water. The ones I've spoke to were adamant, no, we don't want it. We've seen bad reports, whatever. I understand there's pros and cons, but I couldn't support it to force it on to people that absolutely just do not want to drink it.
So I'd make a motion that we ask Al to move forward with grant funding if possible. If not, try to fit it in the budget best as can. I don't want to stop water main projects that have to be done, but yeah, I certainly trust his judgment on how to make that happen. And it eventually is going to have to come back to the commission, probably on a day when I'm not going to get a say anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good argument. We didn't bring that up during the workshop because you were going to have, it'll come back to the commission probably in two forms. A, it'll come back in the grant agreement, and B, it'll come back in the capital expense when you have to approve that. So that will actually give the public two more bites of the apple to yell at you.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second Dan's motion.
Oh, you did? I didn't hear that. Okay. Any additional comments then?
Yeah, what is the motion again?
To
Yeah,
pursue,
it's
best efforts
to,
to pursue grants, otherwise approve it.
But you'll get to vote again.
But
when
it's
it
got to come
comes
back to the commission from a budget standpoint, formal budget standpoint. So he's saying that gives the public two more chances to speak. So that's a good point. Any other public comments? If none, roll call.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
No.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Next item, discussion item on the, our organizational meeting is now on Monday, January 2nd, which is a national holiday. So we need to move that. My recommendation, we just move it next day to Tuesday, the 3rd, but I'm open to ideas. Have we ever done it in the first city commission meeting?
Yeah, that was one thing I was.
Not that I
I mean,
remember.
like we do a CRA meeting? I mean, could it be 5 o'clock?
We could.
We could.
Is there anything in the charter that says we do it on the first Monday? Or is that just what
Yes.
we?
Oh,
The charter says we have a separate
Yes,
special
says your
meeting.
organization meeting is your first Monday of the year, and then if it falls on a
This one's-
holiday, you change it.
We change
You
it.
can, you can change the date, as long as there's a majority there.
Okay, so
approve it.
yeah, so then you could do your special meeting on, I'm getting the right
On the
date here.
9th?
You could do it on the 9th and do it at 5.
the first is the, oh, okay. so
The
second,
first is
okay,
the
okay,
holiday.
My bad, okay,
Yeah,
you're right.
so the
Second.
next available Monday would be the 9th,
Okay.
which is the regular
Is
meeting.
everybody okay with that? Yeah.
5
You like
p.m.?
that
So
idea?
do the,
So we're gonna, 30 minutes will be enough? Because,
probably not even, probably could do 5:15.
well, don't we do all those committees too? though,
You
right?
do, so
You do
30
committees
minutes.
and-
5
Yeah.
o'clock is the right time.
Yeah.
You can get it all done in 30 minutes.
Okay,
And swear your new people in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you're going to be fighting over committees this year.
Yeah.
Got your eye on a few.
Hey, I missed a meeting. I missed a meeting one time. You don't want to miss a meeting on that one.
Getting off.
So organizational meeting, 1/9.
5 p.m.
January 9th,
Monday the
2023 at
Yep.
5 o'clock. Okay,
Okay.
Perfect.
all right.
Do we need to, we're good on that? We don't need a
We don't.
formal motion on that or anything? Okay.
No, sir.
Information, moving on, informational reports, none. City attorney items.
Good evening again, Francesca Sabatini, Associate City Attorney, and for Grant Watson tonight. And I have no report, just wanted to say hello and happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. City manager items.
I have a bulk power cost adjustment update for you. Commissioner Roebuck, I think, did a pretty solid by getting Jacob Williams to come in. Hopefully, everybody's seen those 3 presentations. We did 3, one on cost, one on with Jacob, myself, about rates and conservation measures. So I wanted to give the commission an update when Dan interviewed me on Lakefront, I made these really cool charts, and Dan yelled at me because he said they were too technical, and I didn't need to provide them all because people would get confused. So I'm flipping through this really quick to bring up the one that's the most important, which is this one. So here's the long story short. Since the time that we've had the issues with the power cost adjustment and gas went up on the September, we had the 50 per 1,000 power cost factor, 7 cents then in October, and we estimated that 7 cents was going to be where we're at for some time. FMPA has since gotten about 75% of their fuel hedged. That hedging price kicks in March. So long story short, the update is we're still going to be at the 7 cent power cost adjustment from now through March. Hopefully April, when the first rung of adjustments kicks in, we're hopeful that we can bring the price down. So we did the per 1,000 on this chart. Did we bring the price down from the 70 cents to probably an area when we're in $100, we can be around a 50, 45 cent power cost adjustment. And then April 25, hopefully another dink in power cost adjustment. So hopefully we see some rate relief coming this spring in April, and then again in spring of 24. So that's the update. The numbers on the rate watch section of the homepage is up there. We've actually bettered our estimates by $500,000. You know, $500,000 isn't a big deal in 70 million, but at least that, you know, it's trending in the right direction. We're a little bit better. That $500,000 is on our over recovery, so we're about $500,000 ahead of where we expected. So that's significant because we're trying to get from that negative $9 million back to a positive $3 million. And when we see that number, I don't think we need to have that over the course of a fiscal year, but we do need to see the trend of that cost, that dollar a megawatt coming down, and then we need to see that stabilize, and then we'll feel comfortable and get some rate relief. Hopefully that comes April.
No, thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Christian,
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Burry,
Tonight,
Commissioner Roebuck,
On the electric side, I did attend the FMPA's policy making at the quarterly committee meeting last week, and the only updated addition to that is just kind of on a national picture. You know, one of the things that we're struggling with is pipeline capacity, and that when Senator Manchin agreed to support the Inflation Reduction Act, one of his kind of holdups, he said, well, you got to allow me to have a vote on fast tracking these 25 energy projects. So Schumer agreed, okay, we'll give you a vote on that. It wasn't part of the act, but we'll give you a vote on that. But it didn't have a lot of Democratic support, but the thought was, well, there would be enough Republican support on that particular item because of the pipeline stuff. But of the 25 projects, only 5 of them were going to be like fossil fuel, natural gas type projects. And the Republicans decided that they were mad at Manchin for caving on the Inflation Reduction Act. The Democrats were mad because they don't like the pipeline projects. So neither party would agree to support it. However, the good news, according to our lobbyist, is that's mostly political posturing, and after the midterms, everyone's probably going to support it because there's enough people that actually want it to happen, despite what they're trying to say before the midterms and running. So one way or another, he does think that'll happen. So certainly hope so. That would be good for the state of Florida for our natural gas. And so listening to Commissioner Cannell's no votes, I'm glad we have term limits because that used to be me. I was voting no on everything, and the fact that I'm voting yes and you're voting no, I am clearly not skeptical enough, and we need some new people on the commission. So I appreciate that. That's it.
Commissioner Connell,
Nothing tonight.
Mayor Peterson.
Nothing tonight. Meeting adjourned.
You too, sir.
That was a good. I was going to comment on it, but Al touched on it. I watched the video with you and the CEO.